Hello and welcome to Introduction to Christianity, REL 2502. My name is Chris Fouché, and this is the fall 2016 online class for the University of Florida. This is week one's lecture, kind of a basic opening lecture to get you acclimated to the class, what it's going to look like, what I expect from you, and what you can expect from me. Again, my name is Christopher Fouché. That last name can be tough to pronounce sometimes, but that's how you do it. And yeah, let's get going. So the action plan today is pretty basic. Course introduction, instructor introduction, syllabus walkthrough, and then a little discussion of your readings. The readings are light this week. That will change, but we'll talk about all of that as we go. First of all, yeah, there's me. And by the way, the notes that I look on, the PowerPoint, our Keynote or whatever it's called in Mac, I post that on the Canvas webpage. So if you want words to go with this lovely picture, you can get it under the Files tab. I'll do that for all of these because I intend to do one of these a week. Not to go too long, but just to give you a little bit of added information, help you through the reading and just kind of give you stuff that I think is important that you ought to know. But anyway, so for me, I am a doctoral student in the religion department. I've been there for a few years. I am currently living in Orlando, but I'm in Gainesville quite a bit. So if you need help, if you need to come see me and you'd rather have it be face-to-face than over a computer screen, I can do that. Just let me know. And there's an office in Anderson Hall for the religion and nature people to hang out in, and we can certainly meet there. Or if that's not of interest to you, we can meet, we can exchange emails, we can Skype, we can use Canvas, we can do what we need to do. I want to make myself as available to you as I can because, online classes, you can feel isolated, but I want to extend the invite to you that I'm available and I'd like to help and with any questions that you have. And, just take it from somebody who's been at this for obviously a long time. It's not a bad thing to go seek out your professors, even if you don't have a specific question, to make those connections. I'm not saying you need to do it with me specifically, but just as a general rule, it's helpful and it'll help you going forward. But anyway, so yeah, that's me. I am married. My wife is Corinne. My girls are Juliana, who's 7, and Olivia, who's 3. And I did my undergrad in communication studies, it feels like a lifetime ago, up at Florida State. Did my master's of Divinity from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary, which is on the North Shore of Massachusetts, about a half hour north of Boston. Got an MDiv from there. And here we are in the Religion and Nature program. And the stuff that I like to write about is food, specifically sustainability in food, food cultures, food ways, and how that all ties into ethics and what we ought to be doing. Eating food is an ethical action, basically. So that's me. You also have a TA for this class, which is a lovely bonus, and our TA is a lovely person who you will truly enjoy working with. Her name is Amanda Nichols, and she has a little introductory blurb there. She's super cool. You can read all about that. Her work, she talks a lot about environmental injustice. So, if you want to get in a conversation with her, just say the words mountaintop removal and just watch her go. Just in all seriousness, she's very cool, and she will be an additional source of help to you. So if I say something or if I write something that doesn't make any sense and you don't want to come to me about it, go to Amanda. That's fine, and she'll be happy to help you with that. In terms of the class, Introduction to Christianity, it's the second time I've taught it, so I'm not quite so intimidated as I was last year. But still, Introduction to Christianity is such a wide-ranging class. Where do you even start? So what I want to do is to give you as wide-ranging an introduction as I can manage. My fear is it's going to be a mile wide and an inch deep, which I think for this sort of class is just par for the course, but I really do want to take some time along the semester to just kind of stop and drill down a little bit. But for the most part, yeah, we're covering a lot of different things. Starting with starting with Jesus, the person of Jesus. Who is he? Why is he significant? Yeah, huge. You could just do a whole class on that. And then the ancient sources, where do we know about Christianity from? So you're talking about the Bible, you're also talking about extra canonical stuff like the Gospel of Thomas, Q, and all these other fun things we'll get into. So then after the sources, we move into the central tenets of Christian theology. What is this weird thing called sin, and what does that mean, and redemption, and all these funny things, and how that relates to church history. And we're going to do a whirlwind, keyword being whirlwind, tour of Christian history. We'll talk about Augustine, Aquinas, Paul, Martin Luther King. Yeah, we're going to be moving pretty fast, but it's giving you the historical context. So the first big chunk of this class, you might be wondering, did I stumble into a history class? I have to do that because if you don't know where the religion came from and how it has shifted and how it has changed and how it has not changed over the years, it's going to be hard to make sense of it nowadays. But we will make the turn and we will get into the modern era probably in the second half of the class. And what does that look like? Well, thinking about the different denominations and traditions, Catholic versus Protestant versus Pentecostal versus evangelical, all these titles that you might have heard about in the news. We'll dig into what that means and who those people actually are. We'll talk about how different cultures process Christianity differently. West versus East, Asia, Europe, America, that type of thing. And plus, just ethnic groups within America. I mean, you could talk about just within Catholicism. The difference between white Catholics and Latino Catholics is just massive. So you could spend a lot of time talking about that. So we'll get into that a little bit. And then finally looking at how Christianity interacts with some of the big questions. We're going to talk a little bit about how it interacts with the question of race. Does Black Lives Matter? What does that have to do with Christianity? Homosexuality. There's a fierce debate around that. So we'll dig into that a little bit. Maybe some other things too. Gender roles, environmental crisis. There's a little bit of play with the syllabus. I can kind of get a feel for how things are going as we progress and shift as necessary. But the last end of the class is going to be focused on this sense of how does this religion that started thousands of years ago, how does it play out, not just in like somebody's private devotional life, but how does it play out in real life, in real time, in the public square, as it relates to these types of issues. We have obviously a very contentious presidential election going on right now. How does Christianity play into that? Maybe we'll talk about that if the state of the election hasn't left you too depressed to talk about these things. So that's kind of the goal there. What I am hoping for, just in a word, or in a couple words, what I'm hoping for is, well, first of all, diversity. There are so many, how do you even talk about Christianity? Like there's just one. There are so many expressions of Christianity in the world, there's no chance that we'll get through them all. I don't pretend to be able to give you the essence of Christianity like this. This is the pure, the pristine version, because I got my lenses on, and so do you. You might have, if you're perceptive, you might have seen in the introduction, wait, he got his master's from a seminary? And if you know anything about the seminary, it's a conservative evangelical seminary. So right there, you know that, I have lenses that I see this material through. Amanda's got different lenses and you got different lenses. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. Because we're aware of the lenses that we view this material through. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the fact that we all see through a glass darkly? Well, we all have partial vision. You go for diversity. So you're going to read Catholic writers. You're going to read Protestant writers. You're going to read Orthodox writers. You're going to read writers from the Western world. You're going to read writers from Asia. You're going to read gay writers. You're going to read straight writers. You're going to read female. Do you see the point? You see what I'm getting at? I want to give you a lot of different looks in terms of not just denominations, but regions and cultures and how they all take this material and how it works in that context. Also want to give you diversity in terms of the stuff that I cover. I've already mentioned this. I am going to talk about history. I'm going to talk about theology, but I also want to talk about how Christianity plays out in artwork. I want to talk about how it plays out in literature. You'll see that in the books that I've assigned, and also the controversial ethical topics of the day, as I've already said. So diversity. The other thing I'm hoping for is objectivity, which is kind of strange given what I've just said. I have no desire to be a cheerleader for this material. Yay, go Christianity. You should be a Christian. If you're not, what's wrong with you? That's not my goal. But on the other hand, I don't want to be a cynic. It's all BS, and anyone who believes this is a simpleton. I don't want to do that either. I want to try to be a tour guide who shows you as many different takes and as many different views on this material as I can. So what does that mean? That means probably you're going to love, no matter where you're coming from, you're going to love some of this material, and some of this material is going to piss you off. I don't apologize for that. It's intentional. I want you to get worked up. Because it's going to expose you to people who view this religion, view this material very differently than you, which is not a bad thing when it comes to learning. What I'm most hoping for, quite frankly, is that I don't screw up too badly on Canvas. Like I said, this is my second time, so I should be a little better than I was last year, but I don't trust myself enough to say that I can guarantee to you that it's going to go smoothly. But I'll do the best I can. If you need any Canvas help, like, hey, it's not uploading my assignment. Why is it not letting me take this quiz? I'll be as helpful as I can, but I have to warn you, that's not very helpful. You're probably better off going to the website, the Help Desk UF website, to get Canvas help there. They know far more about it than I do. They'll be much more helpful. But I will try, if I have a question, if you give me a question, I'll do my best to answer it, but I don't make any promises. All right, in terms of the syllabus, I want to do a really quick syllabus walkthrough with you. I don't want to spend too much of your time, but just want to get you acclimated to the syllabus. First thing you see there is the contact info. Use it. Use mine. Use Amanda's. If I don't hear from you, and if Amanda doesn't hear from you, then our expectation is that everything's going perfect, you understand the material beautifully, and you are comfortable in what's expected. So if that's not true, then the obligation is on you to tell us, tell me, tell Amanda, hey, I need help, I don't understand this, I'm struggling. If you do that, we'll go through a wall to help you. But if you keep that information hidden from us, we have no means to do that. So if you're flailing and if you're struggling, or even if you just, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about this? We want to be available, and we will be available. I will make it a priority to get to your emails and to answer them as quick as I can. Just because I know some, especially, if you're a Gainesville student, that's one thing, but if you're an online student somewhere that's disconnected from the campus and you send an email off into space and no one answers within 48 hours, that's isolation. I don't want that. I don't want it to feel like that for you. So this is my plea. You'll probably hear it from me again. Seek us out. Use that contact information. Like I said, it's Skype, it's email, it's scheduling an in-person interview, face-to-face thing. Amanda's actually in Gainesville, so she can actually, she's much more present and accessible there. So yeah, just let us know what you want us to do in terms of that. Onto the books. There's a fair amount of reading. I'm not going to apologize for that, because how do you learn about this material? Well, you learn by reading people who write about it and who believe it and who don't, and what all that looks like. So let me just walk through the books. There are going to be articles in addition to the books. The URL will be on the Canvas website, so you should be able to click directly. I promise not to try to kill you with the reading, but I do want you to read a fair amount. And if that's a problem, sorry. The first book is, I want you to read some passages out of the Bible. If you don't own a Bible, don't go buy one for this class. Use the thousands of Bible software websites that are out there. Bible Gateway is a free one that you can look up in a million different translations. Don't spend money if you don't already have, don't spend money for this class if you don't already have a Bible. The McGrath book, if I don't have it here with me, I should have it in front of me. Oh yeah, I do. The McGrath book looks like that, or at least my version does. Yours might look different. It's a nice textbook, and it's really going to form the skeleton structure for this class. So you're not going to have to read too much of McGrath in one sitting, but over the course of the semester, you're going to get most of McGrath, because it's just a great framework for the class. And I follow McGrath's framework, basically, in terms of how the class is structured. The second one is, here it is, my version, The Meaning of Jesus by Marcus Borg and N.T. Wright. Get this one first, because it's a book on Jesus. I told you I'm starting with Jesus, so that's the one you're going to need first. I love this book for a lot of different reasons, not least of which is the fact that Borg and Wright are two Jesus scholars coming from very different positions. Wright is a traditionalist, he's a conservative. Borg is a progressive, more liberal scholar. So they disagree about a lot in terms of Jesus, in terms of his death, his resurrection, his life. Yeah, they disagree on a lot. But they do it in a really civil respect. They're friends. I mean, before Borg passed last year, they were really good friends, and you can tell in the writing because they disagree, but they disagree with the spirit of charity, with the spirit of respect, with the spirit of love even, which I think is just fabulous. And along the way, they've written one of the most illuminating books on the person of Jesus that I've ever seen. So, like I said, I love this book, and I can rave on this book, but I hope you'll like it as much as I do. So you have Bible, you have McGrath, you have Borg and Wright, you have this one, which your version might look a little bit different, but this is my version. It's the older version of this book. It's a book called Silence, written by Shosaku Endo. It's a novel, which you're thinking, okay, a novel for an Introduction to Christianity class. It is a novel. Endo was a Japanese Catholic. He wrote a novel, historical novel, about Portuguese missionaries hundreds of years ago who go to Japan in order to be missionaries, in order to spread the gospel, and everything that happens to them. And it is the best representation of culture clash is kind of a cliche, but one of the best representations of how Western perceptions of Christianity and Eastern perceptions of Christianity can be really, really different, but can also be kind of similar in some ways. It's a fantastic, powerful novel. Not the happiest of reading, but again, I think it's something that you're going to be affected by. Martin Scorsese is actually making it into a movie. You might have seen the trailers for this. I think Liam Neeson is one of the main characters. So you'll be able to read this and then go see the movie when it comes out next year, which could be good, I suppose. But yeah, it's a powerful book, and it'll help us a lot when we talk about how this Christianity plays out in different cultures. We'll talk about the whole idea of a missionary, what that means in and how that's been portrayed in Christianity, and so on and so forth. And then the last one, I'm not sure what your version is going to look like, but this one's mine. It's called How Dante Can Save Your Life, the life-changing wisdom of history's greatest poem. And again, you might be thinking, what on earth? This is, if you know anything about Dante, or you've even heard about the Divine Comedy, which is made up of the Inferno, Purgatory, and Paradise, basically. So it's the progression of hell, purgatory, heaven. It's one of the most famous poems of all time. I'm not going to ask you to read Dante, although I kind of wanted to. But this is the next best thing, because this is an author who is going through I don't want to say midlife crisis, but he's going through some real issues. Going through a deep depression and physical medical problems that are associated with a deep depression. And his reading of Dante leads to kind of a re-understanding of his Christian faith and a new mindset for how to address his problems. So I like this book for those reasons. I like the fact that it addresses artwork, a classic work of Christian poetry. But it also addresses how does Christian theology, how does the rubber meet the road for Christians in modern times. And we can look at this, we can kind of stand on the outside looking in and watch how this author's understanding of Christianity is affected by what he reads and how that understanding of Christianity plays out and how he addresses his problems. So again, it's unusual. I didn't use Dreyer last year, so this will be a new experience for me too. But I think it's a really interesting way to incorporate artwork, to incorporate a Christian poet, understanding of how Christianity relates to artwork, with also this kind of real life, daily life, quote unquote, ordinary life focus. So that'll be it there. So those are the books, and you can see on the schedule what I'm asking you to read when, but get Borg and Wright first, and get cracking on that. In terms of the work, like I said, fair amount of reading and also a fair amount of writing. Hello, humanities. It's a humanities course, and this is what you can expect from a lot of humanities courses. It's a 1,000-point scale, so all the assignments, I'm not a math guy, I'm a humanities guy, so all of the assignments are going to add up to 1,000. If you scored 940 points out of a possible 1,000, then congratulations, you scored a 94. You see why this is easy for me in terms of grading. So it's a 1,000-point scale, and here's what makes up the 1,000 points. You have unit quizzes. There's going to be 4. They're going to be a collection of true, false, multiple choice, and short answer questions, and questions that can be answered with a sentence or two. 4 of them, 50 points each. So your quizzes comprise 20% of your grade altogether. Look on the schedule, on the syllabus, to find out when those are, but basically they correspond with each unit of the class. So they're going to be comprised of true, false, multiple choice, and short answer questions, but here's the rub. Those questions are going to come from you. Every week, I'm going to ask you to submit potential quiz questions. 1 true, false, 1 multiple choice, 1 short answer, based on the reading of that week. Here's my thought process. I don't want to do stupid weekly busy work, but at the same time, I want to know that you're reading. So the best way I could think of to do that is to ask you to read the material and then think about, okay, what would make for a good multiple choice question based on this material? What would make for a good short answer question based on this material? And have to formulating questions. It's something that I learned when I started teaching. Formulating good questions is harder than just spouting off knowledge. Like, you can regurgitate the chapter for me, that's fine. But it's actually a better exercise to think of a really good question that shows that you read the material, that shows that you have an understanding of the material, but also frames it in such a way where you can think about, how do I turn this into a question that I can ask? Now, when you turn the questions in, you don't necessarily need to provide the answer, although, if you're writing a question that I might use, it's probably good for you to know the answer. I reserve the right to modify them. I might tweak words or tweak the question somewhat, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to collect your questions, gather them all up. In the course of grading, I'm going to pull aside the ones that I like, and I'm going to give those back to you as weekly study guides. And every single question on the 4 quizzes is going to come from those study guides, word for word. So you're going to have, before you sit down to take these quizzes, you're going to have a study guide that has the entire range of questions that I'm going to pull from when I write the quiz. So it's a way for you to know exactly what to expect and to not be surprised. But it's also a way for me to, you can't blame me for seriously hard quiz questions. If somebody in your class came up with it, you go find out who did it and blame them. But again, it's a way to show me that you have a grasp of the reading material without making you do weekly busy work. So there's going to be one of those. There's going to be 13 altogether, so just about every week. Not this week, but just about every week. 10 points each. There's a final exam. Different from the quizzes. The quizzes are going to be closed book, closed source, multiple choice, true, false, short answer. Final exam is probably going to be open source, which is use your books, use your notes. Essay tests, like maybe 1 or 2 essays, focusing on big themes. And you'll get a lot more information about that as you get closer, but it's going to be a very different animal than the quizzes. There's going to be reflections/responses. What does that mean? Online class. We haven't figured out how to get that classroom interaction. So the best that we can do in the meantime is to use the discussion boards. So what does that look like? Every week I'm going to come up with a question. And again, this is different. When you write your quiz questions, part of that is showing me that you've read the material, you understand it. When it comes to answering these reflections and responses, I don't give a crap about that. This is not your cognitive grasp. This is that you've thought about the material and you're able to register how this material hits you. So this is going to be a lot of, well, what do you think? Who do you agree with? How does this make you feel? Those types of questions. And what it's going to be is drawing out from you how you've not only read this material, but maybe reflected on it a little bit and said, I like that. Oh, I don't like that. To try to get your opinions out a little bit. Now, dealing with opinions in a religion class can be dangerous. I understand that. you've got to keep it respectful on the message boards. If anyone, I mean, and I don't, and respectful doesn't mean never disagree. By the way, you can disagree well, but if your response on the message board goes below board, goes a place where I don't feel like it should go, you're going to get warned, and if it happens again, you're going to deal with sanctions. We've got to, I mean, think about the topic. I mean, we've got to lay these ground rules now where it's like we will not, even though people can get pretty heated in discussing religion, we will do it in such a way that always conveys respect to you, the student, and to you two amongst each other as fellow students. We have to do that. So you'll have a reflection due by Wednesday, at least 100 words. Then you'll have a response to one of your classmates' reflections due by Friday. You can post more if you want to, but bare minimum to get the full points, you need those 2 posts. One of your own thought and one in response to one of your classmates' reflections. Each of them at least 100 words, thought through, and respectful to one another. So I want to see, again, and I'm not looking for you to recite information for me or or to show me what you know. I don't care about that. I want to show evidence. I want you to show evidence that you've thought about these things, and you're able to communicate what you think about these topics. So yeah, there's that. And then you have the other assignments are 2 smaller papers. When I say smaller, 6 to 8 pages, double spaced. That's not a lot to ask. The first one is the good old standby for these types of classes, the church visit paper. You will be asked to attend 2 Christian worship services and to write a paper based on your experiences in those worship services, kind of a compare and contrast model. Now, in order for a compare and contrast to be interesting, you need to choose 2 very different traditions. If you go to 2 evangelical churches, I'm going to be bored. If you go to 2 Catholic churches, I'm going to be bored. If you go to 2 university churches that cater exclusively to UF students, don't go to St. Augustine and then the Gator Wesley. I mean, nothing against those 2 places, but expand your mind a little bit here and try something new. I am looking for diversity. I am looking, if you go to a predominantly college student worship service, then I'm looking for you to go to something that has a lot more older people in your other one. Look for ways in which you can have some interesting contrasts between your services. And it doesn't have to be just, it's not just young versus old, by the way, and it's not yet just denominational. You can do ultra traditional versus house church. You can do a church service that meets in someone's dorm, if there is such a thing. And then go down to the Catholic Church and talk about the difference between extreme high church and extreme low church. You have a lot of leeway. You can pick basically whatever ones you want, but I'm just saying in order for a paper to work, you need to have some kind of contrast to work with. So the most important element of this paper, honestly, is picking good, making good choices in terms of who you go visit and then being detailed. But there's an appendix A, on the syllabus, which has a lot more detail about what I'm looking for and what I think makes a good paper. So check that out. But I'm going to demand from you your church selections ahead of time. So be on the lookout on the schedule for when those are due. I need you to tell me what churches you're going to before. I don't want to be surprised, because I want to be able to offer feedback like, you might want to rethink that, or those are good choices, go with that. So yeah, that's the first one. Second one is a Christian interview paper. What does that mean? Find a Christian, easy enough, or maybe not easy enough, depending on your context, and then say, hey, can we talk about your faith? Talk about how, and what might you talk about? Well, maybe how they came to this faith. Maybe how their family is or is not a part of this faith. And how their Christianity affects how they live their daily lives. Like if you find, if you go talk to your dad, which family members are okay, I think it'd be more interesting to maybe branch out a little bit, but I'm giving you leeway here. But say you go talk to a mentor figure of yours, and that mentor is a lawyer in a firm. I think a beautiful question to ask them would be, okay, well, you're a Christian and you're a lawyer. How do those 2 things, do those 2 things ever conflict with each other? How do those 2 things work out in your life? I think that'd be very interesting. So yeah, so you basically have a conversation, and again, there's a lot more information on Appendix B of the syllabus, and again, your selection needs to be approved ahead of time, who you're talking to. I'll give you you'll be hearing this from me, and I've already written it in the appendix, but start this process early. What I don't want to see happen is the Wednesday of the week it's due, you go to someone and say, help, I need to do this interview thing, drop what you're doing, and don't let your lack of planning become someone else's emergency. Give plenty of time, and be as respectful and as accommodating of the other person as you can. They are doing you a favor. But again, that's all written in Appendix B, so you'll be able to check that out. So yeah, those are the others, and those are 200 points apiece. So that, papers are a big bulk of your grade. But again, neither one is terribly intimidating. 6 to 8 pages is not, double spaced is not that much. But that's kind of how those work. Other stuff, again, the schedule is on the syllabus, so you're not going to be surprised by anything. Check that out. The obligatory plagiarism discussion. I have caught plagiarism, and I will catch more. Find out what it is, and don't do it. If you don't know what it is, there's plenty of resources. In terms of don't do it, I can give you the cheesy. I can give you the whole spiel that you've already heard before. But I would just say you might get caught, and if you get caught, the consequences are not good. And even if you don't get caught, come on. I mean, what are you even here for? Your education is more than a credential. It's more than a letter at the end of the semester. And if you take shortcuts, then honestly, I know it's cliche as all hell, but if you take shortcuts, you're the one you're screwing over more than anybody else. So there you go. Plagiarism discussion over. In terms of classroom behavior, classroom is in quotes. Sorry about that. Classroom is in quotes because, online. But again, politics and religion, right? And we're in religion. So opinions can get pretty hot. The key word is respect. I'll be looking for respect in all of your interactions with each other. Even if someone posts an opinion on the reflection boards and you think, that is crazy. If you call that person a stupid idiot, heathen, pagan, wingnut, fundamentalist, any insult that you can imagine, leave those behind. I will be paying close attention to that. And then finally, turning in work. Dog ate my homework. Oh, it didn't upload in time? Sorry. It's on you to get your work in. And it's on you to make sure that your tech is working appropriately. It's on you to assure that your assignments go through. If you have any doubt if your assignment went through, if your computer is acting wonky and you don't know if something went through, send me an email immediately and say, hey, can you check to make sure that went through? Because if I get that a week after the due date, I'm not going to have much sympathy. So just take care of it ahead of time, okay? Okay, so I think that covers the syllabus. Obviously, if you have any more questions or if you need more clarification, let me know, and I will be happy to assist. This week's reading, there's two things. Relatively small reading this week, but I do want you to get cracking. The first one is an article from a man named Russell McCutcheons, who's a religious studies professor at University of Alabama, I think. It's called What is the Academic Study of Religion? And this is a really helpful article because he draws a distinction and spends the entirety of the article drawing a distinction between what he calls theology on the one hand and the academic study of religion on the other. And this one might be an eye-opener if you are in the situation that I was in when I was an undergrad. I was, sat in church services my whole life. Went to undergrad, saw a class that said Intro to New Testament. I said, man, I've been in Sunday school. This is going to be easy. I'm a Christian and I've read all this material. I'm gonna skate through this. Proceeded to go into that room and proceeded to get my head handed to me, because academic study of religion is a very different animal than Sunday school. I mean, that's kind of a duh statement, but it's something that somebody might need to hear. So this article is helpful for parsing out how that works and the differences between the two. He talks about something called the non-evaluative comparative method. which I believe I asked you about in the reflection questions. I'll be curious to get your take on whether non-evaluative comparative is even possible, whether it's possible to compare traditions without evaluating, without making a value judgment of one being better than another. And then finally, what I want you to look for in McCutcheon's article is just, if it's not theology, if it's not insiders wanting to learn more about God, then what is the academic study of religion? What are we looking for? And I want you to see if you can spot that in the McCutcheon article. And then I want you to read part 1 of Borg and Wright. It's about 30 pages. The introduction in part 1. It's about 27, 28 pages. Like I said, the book's written as a discussion. Wright's a conservative, Borg's more progressive. Love the way they disagree with each other. But in this first part, kind of a similar topic, I want you to, if you have faith / theology on one hand, you have scholarship / academic study of religion on the other. McCutcheon draws a very bright line between the two. It separates them and says, no, you stay over here, you stay over here. Wright holds them together. Borg kind of holds them in tension. So that relationship between faith and scholarship, that relationship between the stuff that we can cognitively grasp and the stuff that more is kind of a visceral, gut level thing. Watch how these three authors treat those topics, because they all have a little bit of a different perspective. And it's interesting to kind of get the range of possibilities here, from keep them absolutely separate to put them both together and have one feed the other, to Borg, who's kind of all right, I have both, but how they play with each other is kind of a complicated thing. So that's what I'll be looking for there. I mean, just to give you a sampling of it, a quote from Borg and Wright in the introduction, which is co-written. They wrote this together. They said, "There is, after all, no such thing as objectivity in scholarship. Anyone who supposes that by setting scholarship within a modern secular university, University of Florida, or some other carefully sanitized non-religious setting, they thereby guard such work against the influence of presuppositions that can seriously skew the result, should, we suggest, think again." McCutcheon is going to say, leave your personal stuff, leave your personal opinions out of it. Borg and Wright say, that's nonsense. You are bringing your take, your perspective to the table. Better to be aware of it and deal with it. So there's differences in perspective. And again, I'll be curious to see how you relate to this material. And you're going to show me on the reflection question this week. So there you go. Other key things, Borg talks about the Jesus of history versus the Christ of faith, which again is this kind of same division. He talks about the Gospels, and we'll get into this in a little bit more detail as we go. But yeah, that's the gist of the reading from week 1. So what I want you to do this week, your action plan for the week, do the reading. The article from McCutcheon is very short. Borg and Wright's a little bit longer, but still not overwhelming. No quiz questions this week, so you don't have to worry about that. They start next week, but there is a reflection this week, and I'm also asking for a response to another student's reflection as well. And start to think about where you're going for your church visits, because I'm going to ask for them in a couple weeks. So start doing that work on, get on websites, talk to people, think through where you're going to go for your church visitation paper. And I think that's it. So again, welcome, and if I can help you in any way, let me know. Otherwise, away we go.